If you've been in or around the home coffee scene for at least the last couple of years, it's pretty likely you've heard of the Zerno Z1. This relative newcomer to the ever-growing single-dose grinder market has gained accolades throughout the industry, from the Specialty Coffee Association to James Hoffmann, making it one of the most visible coffee grinders, at least in the North American market. And over the last year or so, I've been working with it both on and off camera, and really taking my time using some of its optional accessories, a few of its most popular burr sets, and grinding a lot of coffee to give the Z1 a full review. But of course, it's not a brand new grinder. It's not hot off the presses. Like I said, I've spent a year working with this grinder, so I'm late. I'm late to the party. But in the grand scheme, hopefully I can add something new to the cacophony of voices in this space. So in this video, I'll be covering my takes on its build, materials, workflow, grinding, brewing, and everything in between. But first, a quick word from this video's sponsor. When it comes to brewing the best coffee, quality ingredients matter. And purely by the numbers, water makes up to 98% of what's in your cup, and it's absolutely vital to the long-term reliability of your equipment. So after months of testing and trials, I've landed on third wave water formulas for all of my coffee preparation. Not only is it designed to not produce scale or cause corrosion, but there's an option for every palate. Third wave water offers a wide variety of mineral blends designed to get the most out of your favorite roast level or brew type. So take control of arguably one of the most important variables for brewing quality coffee today. And head over to thirdwavewater.com/Sprometheus or use code Sprometheus at checkout to get 10% off your first purchase. Thanks to Third Wave Water for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back into it. The Zerno Z1, given its relatively compact footprint, does have a decent heft to it. Sitting at just 11 inches high and 12 inches deep, it clocks in at a little over 14 pounds. And that's likely due to the lack of plastic and the abundance of stainless steel and aircraft-grade aluminum. Every piece and part, including the accessories like the dosing cup, funnel cap, optional portafilter holder, and even the body panels, are really robust and don't give the impression that they were thinned or hollowed out in the name of cost cutting. And moving on to the inside of the grinder, the build quality there is equally impressive. All of the parts and pieces fit together smoothly and cleanly. There's no unfinished sharp corners or edges or imperfections, and with the included tools, it makes cleaning and calibration easy and honestly downright satisfying. The only thing build quality wise that I would have loved to see from the Z1 is a brushless motor, as most grinders in its $1,400 to $1,500 price range do have, which are quieter, longer lasting, and more efficient. Though I should say I'm a year deep in regularly using this grinder and haven't even had a simple stall. Though I will say that the biggest compliment I can give the grinder overall in terms of its build and materials is it feels like it was truly designed and built by people who are passionate about creating something, people who are passionate about coffee. And it wasn't set up in a boardroom somewhere where executives yayed and nayed things all in the name of selling more grinders at a higher profit. This may or may not come as a surprise, but the Zerno Z1, in terms of its workflow, isn't breaking the mold. It functions much like any other horizontal burr single doser, as in the beans go in the hopper up top, they are fed down into the Auger/Prebreaker, which is a topic we'll get into shortly, and then they're driven into the burrs and out the bottom comes the grinds. Now, this is a point where in most videos, the conversation would move on to talking about the burrs. Now, because the burrs that are used in this grinder are relatively common geometries, we've had these lab suites for a long time, we've had high uniformity espresso burrs for a long time, we've had multi-purpose burrs for a long time. The flavor profiles of those haven't changed, and there's a million videos out there talking about, all these different burr choices and which one to choose based on what you want out of your coffee. And even a video that I did recently talking about blind burrs and if they are really worth the investment. But I think the really interesting part of the Zerno Z1 is that middle part, the Auger and Prebreaker, because this is a place where some important things happen, at least according to Zerno, so let's take a closer look. This is the medium feed auger, which is designed to initiate the pre-breaking process and optimize the flow of beans through the grind channel. And this is the slow feed auger, which is said to feed a small amount of beans into the grind chamber at one time with minimal popcorning effect, leading to a sharper peak and enhanced clarity. So let's see just how effective these little guys are at pre-breaking without any burrs. With a total of 25 whole beans, I ran them purely through the Prebreaker and found 4 made it out unbroken on the medium feed and 2 made it out unbroken on the slow, which means they both are pretty effective. And the benefits of pre-breaking and a more controlled feed rate of coffee into the burrs is intended to increase not only grind consistency, but also grind efficiency. So now with the second test, I want to put the burrs back in the grinder and test each one of these Prebreakers and augers to really see how they affect overall grind consistency. And we're also going to do it in 2 different ways. We're going to grind one batch where we crowd the chamber and put all beans in at once, and we're going to do another test where we just drop a few beans in at a time. On the slow auger, it produced a ratio of 70% in the same range, with a median grind size of 338 micron, and the standard variant, which indicates the uniformity of the particle size, at 250.7. But if the beans are fed slowly, a few at a time, the numbers change quite a bit. The ratio jumps up to 90%, a finer median grind size of 270 micron, and impressively, the standard variant improves significantly to 107.3, keeping in mind the lower the number, the more uniform the particle size. Interestingly enough, the results on the medium speed auger more or less were a mirror image. The all beans at once method produced a ratio of 83%, a median micron size of 304, and a standard variant of 146.8. And a controlled feed produced a lower ratio of 70%, a higher median micron size at 350, and a significantly higher standard variant at 248.8. So really the big takeaway is here, if you're using a slow feed auger, slow feed your beans into the grinder. And if you're using a medium speed auger, put them all in at once, because each of those methods works the best in terms of getting the best grind size particle distribution, or at least the most consistent grind size particle distribution. Now, the reason for this is I have no idea. So brew and do with that information as you will. It is an interesting dynamic, but it does sort of give more credence to the folks who talk a lot about pre-breakers and feed rates being an important part of grinding. But beyond that really hyper-focused portion of the video, in terms of the basic functions of the grinder, it does a good job at doing what it's designed to do. It has decently low retention numbers as long as you give your doughs a spritz of water. And opening it up for cleaning and swapping burrs and zeroing is pretty easy and straightforward. And it's nice that they include tools to get this done beyond a bog standard Allen key. And lastly, I think I would be remiss if I didn't actually talk at least somewhat about brewing and tasting, though I will say a lot of this is very subjective. And there are so many burr options for these 64mm grinders that you can basically have a different set for each day of the month. That said, over the last year, I've thoroughly enjoyed the cups I've brewed from this grinder. I've had tons of great espresso, and even the small amount of filter that I've brewed has also been excellent and well extracted. So really, no complaints. So with all the workflow and performance stuff out of the way, let's talk quirks and downsides. And even after a year of using this grinder, I still think the motor is kind of loud. And it never really faded into the background like most grinders I've owned. And though I did mention it earlier, I do think a grinder in this $1,500 price range should definitely have a brushless motor, because not only it being quieter, but like I said, it's more reliable over the long term. And even with its relatively low retention numbers, I find the inside of the grinder collects quite a bit more grinds than I expected, like in the chute, behind the adjustment dial, inside the dosing chamber, and even in and underneath the burrs. And on the topic of burrs, getting the blind burrs out of the grinder can be a bit of a pain. They do include these magnets that work okay, but if it's been a while since you've taken them out, you do sort of need to break the burrs loose a bit to get them to unseat and pull out. And finally, this is more so just for me to rant a little bit, and I don't think this is still how they do their ordering process. I believe Zerno has moved to like a traditional, you go onto their website and you order a grinder situation, but because it was part of my buying experience and I didn't really enjoy it, having to pay $10 to get onto a wait list for the chance to buy a grinder and then wait a year for that grinder wasn't really the ideal buying experience from a consumer perspective. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't like that, but that was part of it, and it was a downside in the grand scheme. Though, like I said, now that's not the issue, but if you're watching this and you're looking to create your own grinder program, maybe not go that route. Just my 2 cents. In the end, the Zerno Z1 is a good grinder, and it deserves a lot of the praise it's received. It's got a solid build, it's made of quality materials, and it uses a common burr size, giving it a huge number of options, plus it's capable of a very consistent grind. But I still don't find myself loving it, and I honestly can't really put my finger on why. Though I think the quality of grinders has increased so much over the last handful of years that it's hard for a grinder to come out and really outdo the competition. There are less expensive options out there who perform very similarly, like the Philos. And there are grinders with larger burrs and brushless motors that boast just as immaculate build quality, like the new Lagome P80. So here's my hot take. In this pretty broad and varied market of high-end home coffee grinders, a lot of them tend to perform in a very similar window. And instead of choosing a grinder based on how good it grinds, like we used to, now it comes down to different things. It seems the selling points have shifted towards maybe availability, access to service, and I think the big one, aesthetics. You either like it or you don't. And the expectation that it performs well at this point is just sort of built in, especially in the 4-figure price range. But on that bombshell, I think it's time I start wrapping this one up, and as always, pass the conversation on to you. So what are your thoughts on the Zerno Z1? And do you agree or disagree about the relatively level playing field we're on right now in terms of home coffee grinders? Drop your answers to those questions and any others you may have in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see y'all in the next video. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications when new videos drop. Check out my Instagram at Sprometheus for more coffee content. Help support the channel by considering becoming a member for exclusive access. And as always, stay caffeinated. Ponyboy